Hello, and welcome to the Dirty Apron Baking Club. From breads to pies, from beginners to experts, we aim to help bakers everywhere achieve professional results. So please subscribe and like for more recipes, tips, and techniques. I don't know about you, but I truly love good toast. This is going to be the best toasting bread we've ever made. Let's go over what ingredients you'll want for this recipe. First, you're going to need all-purpose flour and semolina flour. This is the real star of the show. Semolina adds the color and the flavor and adds the soft texture that we're after. You'll also want whole milk powder. If you need help finding some of these ingredients, I have links in the description. I'm using SAF instant yeast. Good yeast is very important to the bread making process. It greatly affects the flavor. Now this may be new to some of you. This is dry malt powder. This is our secret ingredient. We just need a teaspoon of this and it'll give our bread much better rise, much better texture, and much better color. We'll be talking more about that later. And then of course we'll need some salt, and in this bread we'll need some honey. You will also need a couple tablespoons of butter or margarine, which we have out on the counter softening up. I have a complete list of ingredients later in this video, so if we are good on ingredients, let's move on. We mentioned earlier letting the butter or margarine soften up. So next we are measuring out 1.5 cups of cool water, which will separate into two containers. One stays cool and the other we will heat for 1 minute in the microwave. We will then add a healthy tablespoon of honey to the hot water, mix that in, and then add the butter or margarine and mix that in. We don't need the butter to completely melt, we just need it to get soft enough to mix up evenly. Pro tip, save the wrapper from the butter. We'll be using that later. We'll use the wrapper to grease up our baking pan. I found this pan with the ridges makes for a better, more even bake, and most importantly, an easy release. I've torn up more than one loaf of bread that didn't want to let go. We'll get the yeast going now. We want to pour all the warm honey water into our mixing bowl and then add about half to 3/4 of the cool water that we have in reserve. Assuming the water is now cool enough to add the yeast, we'll add about 2 teaspoons of yeast and give that a good mix. While the yeast is getting livelied up, it's time for us to measure out the dry ingredients. I measure most everything on a scale. It's way easier that way. So the first is 300 grams of all-purpose flour, 165 grams of semolina flour, and then 40 grams of dry milk. Then our secret weapon, 1 teaspoon of malt powder. And last, 2 shy teaspoons of salt. We'll give that all a good whisk, and then we're ready to put it all together. either by hand or in a mixer. We want to mix everything as evenly as possible. We don't want to overwork the dough, we're just giving it a good mix. This is also the time to maybe add a tablespoon or so of water, or maybe even a little more flour, depending on how our dough is going. Exactly how much water or flour you want to add at this point really depends on the weather at your location. When we are happy, we're going to set this aside for 10 minutes. This 10-minute waiting time is called autolyse or autolysing. All sorts of beneficial things happen during this autolyse, so don't skip this 10-minute step. And this really applies to all bread. When our 10 minutes is up, it's time to knead the dough. I'm using the stand mixer with the dough hook. With a stand mixer, you'll want to set the speed pretty low, number 2 on my mixer. This typically takes about 2 minutes to finish. You can see it's formed a cohesive ball. It's looking fairly smooth, and it pretty much has cleaned the bowl. That's what you're looking for. We will then form this dough into a ball and transfer it to a lightly oiled bowl for the initial rise. Typically, this initial rise takes about an hour. It really depends on how warm your kitchen is. Don't be surprised if it gets quite puffy. Marshmallowy is the common description. Okay, time to form our loaf. First, I'm going to paint the counter with flour using a bench scraper. You'll see I'm spending some time flattening the dough with my fingertips. This is to get rid of any trapped air. Once it's shaped, carefully transfer the bread to the bread pan, being careful not to stretch it out. You'll also notice I'm spending some time really tucking in the sides. The idea is to create a little surface tension. All right, time for the second rise. At this time, please just take a moment and either subscribe or simply a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. Thank you. After about 20 or 30 minutes, we'll want to check our bread and get the oven going. You'll see it's starting to dome up the way we want, but it probably needs about another 20 minutes or so. We want the crown to be about an inch or so above the pan. So this time, let's get the oven going. We're going to preheat to 350 degrees. Before we put the bread in the oven, we want to form a foil cap, which we'll be using later in the bake. Once we are happy with our rise, into the oven the bread goes. So set your timer for 20 minutes. After the 20-minute timer is up, your bread should be looking pretty good. You should be seeing quite a bit of oven spring. We'll want to get our foil cap and cover the loaf loosely. So set the timer for 20 more minutes. All right, let's get our lovely loaf out of the oven and onto the cooling rack. You'll notice how easily it just comes right out of the pan. And don't forget to give it a thump test. You need to let the bread cool down before you dig in. The cooling off period is important. A lot of moisture is given off and the insides need to finish cooking. Before we dig in, a reminder, the ingredients list is next, and links to several items that are on that ingredients list are in the description. And it always helps to subscribe or at least give a thumbs up. Well, thank you for hanging out with me, and I hope all your baking projects are very successful. Bye for now.